Okay, so I want to add a quick thought to that last video that I just stitched for some reason. I guess you can't stitch a video you've already stitched, so I'm learning the nuances of TikTok. I just want to comment on the last part of what I said. I mentioned that Chandra Arya, I mentioned that he had a thick accent, and I mentioned that he was not understanding the nuances of Canadian culture. And I want to clarify that I don't necessarily have an issue with his accent, or anybody else's for that matter. The reason I'm saying that is that Canada, how do I put this? Canada has specific nuances that you kind of have to understand. Because everybody looks so different here, we don't have a very standardized, we don't have a very set beauty standard, right? Like everybody knows that, technically white people are considered the default in North America, and the blonde hair, the blue eye, the kind of valley girl kind of accent, that we know that that's kind of valued, right? But when it comes to applying standards to people of different communities, obviously those standards don't work, right? And so there are other things that people look at for you as a person in North America to be like, do you fit the standard of beauty? Are you enough? And what people will look at is, are you well dressed? Are you in shape? Are your teeth white? Do you have all your teeth? Do they look normal? Do you do your eyebrows? And then another big thing in North America, especially in Canada, is do you have the right accent? Accent in North America is currency. I mentioned in the last video that I grew up in Brampton. I lived there from when I was 5 until I was about 25, and then we moved out. Then we went to Mississauga, and now I'm in Toronto. And I'll tell you this, when I lived in Brampton and Mississauga, there were schools that were set up, schools that people would go to learn the Canadian accent. Why were they going to these schools? Because if you came to Canada and you didn't have the right accent, people immediately other you, people immediately treat you as less than. They will treat you like you are less intelligent. They will treat you like you don't belong in the spaces that you're in. You see how the United States is going on about DEI this, DEI that? That you can start to get a little tenor of that reaction here in Canada if your accent's not right. People will tolerate your accent if it is American. They love it if it's British or something like really close to the west of Europe. But aside from that, they might tolerate the South American accent as well. But aside from that, if your accent's not European, maybe Caribbean might be tolerated. European, Caribbean, and of the Americas, if your accent comes from anywhere that doesn't fall in that category, and you're non-white, you may face challenges. So that's essentially why I brought up his accent at the end. I still am on Twitter. I'm on a private locked account because I don't have time to deal with the nonsense of the unwashed masses. But trust me, when that video first hit Twitter, the first thing people said, the first thing a lot of people were saying was that this guy needs to learn English. This guy doesn't even sound like a Canadian. This guy's not even a real Canadian. This guy's a foreign agent. And can we say that those comments were likely rooted in some form of xenophobia and racism? Of course. I don't think that there's any question about that. Of course, people are worried about the other. And, people are still thinking about the tensions that Trudeau has been having with the Indian government with regards to people coming to and working to promote interests of like Khalistan and other tensions that are going on in India right now. JJ McCullough on YouTube has a great video about that. If I remember, I will look up the video. I will type the video in the comments, and I hate the fact that you can't like add links and but maybe you can copy and paste the title and you can look it up if you're really interested in what's going on with that. But there's been a lot of tensions in Canada regarding, you know, Indian immigrants who have come here, who have been fighting amongst themselves with regards to Khalistan and the desire to have that portion of India separated and into its own state. So there is also that layer as well that adds to things. I don't know. He's probably not part of that region. He's probably not associated with that community, but people, that's still pretty fresh on people's minds. So I wanted to clarify and contextualize that I'm not necessarily knocking his accent. It's one that I probably need to get more attuned to, but I don't necessarily think that's a barrier for him, because clearly he was voted in his constituency, and people trust him to do a good job with their specific region. So I'm sure he's doing a great job. I haven't heard anything to the contrary, but I'm just saying that there's a certain level that he cannot reach until he decides to assimilate even more, to the point where Canadians can close their eyes and think they're listening to a Canadian. If they can't close their eyes and hear something that's more familiar to them, they're just not gonna vote you in, you know? And I truly think that there's even a little bit of a ceiling as well. I don't believe we've ever had a prime minister of color. I would have to look that up to confirm, but if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure all of our past prime ministers have been white. I don't think we've ever had a non-white prime minister. We've had a woman prime minister, and she was just an interim prime minister, and she was gone in like 6 months. But we've never had a prime minister of color. Because I know we have, I believe his name is Jagmeet Singh. If I'm wrong, I apologize. He's the head of the NDP party right now. They'll vote him in as the leader, but, you know, I don't see him ever winning the election to be like leader of Canada. While people like to vote for him, there are some people that will vote for him. He does have a base. I just don't think that people will vote him into power as the full-on leader of the country. I think he'll always get to be leader of the opposition. I don't see him being the full-on leader, because I still think that people are willing to other him. You know, while he's definitely assimilated into the country a lot, and he's probably done great things for Canada, I'm just not that into politics. I really don't know. But, you know, there are a lot of people who, they may not say it aloud, they may not say it publicly, but if they think that you are a safe space to tell their dark secrets, which for some reason I happen to be for people who don't know me, they will say some dark stuff. And, you know, I don't see either of them ever being the leader of the country, but even just to be the face of a party, there's just certain expectations that Canadians will have of you, and Chandra Arya doesn't meet that. And that's all I was trying to say. I wasn't trying to be nasty towards him. Okay, so I hope that's clear.